Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're really glad you could join us. We've got quite a stack of material here, research, notes, case studies, and we're aiming to pull out the absolute best insights for you. Today, we're really getting into the architecture of self-change. We're looking at those foundational strategies, the psychological stuff, the behavioral breakthroughs that promise, well, not just small tweaks, but big, immediate, lasting personal change. Our mission really is to boil down the principles that can actually shift your destiny. We want to move past that idea that we're just creatures of habit or circumstance. We're looking for the keys to actually taking control.
And what's striking is how unified these sources are. They all basically argue that failure isn't about lacking ability. It's more about not focusing your power and direction. Even more interesting, they suggest that all that past frustration, all those failures, they aren't really setbacks. They're actually the groundwork, the foundation for building a whole new level of living. It's like a total reframe of your past experiences.
Right, a reframe. And to really anchor that idea, that possibility of radical change, there's this amazing image from the source material I want to share right away. The author talks about being in a helicopter, flying over Glendale. He looks down, sees this huge office complex, and suddenly realizes that exact building below him, that's where he worked as a janitor just 12 years before, feeling fearful, isolated, and now he's circling above it. I mean, talk about a shift from scrubbing floors to, well, metaphorically circling the executive suites in barely a decade. That's the kind of destiny shift we're digging into.
Yeah, and that kind of transformation, it doesn't just happen by luck or deciding, I'll try to be a bit happier today. It requires fundamentally rewiring your internal operating system. And that system at its core is actually surprisingly simple. Everything you do, everything I do, every single decision, every action, it's all driven by one simple engine. The pain and pleasure principle. You're either moving towards something you perceive as pleasurable, or you're moving away from something you perceive as painful. If you grasp that, you really start to understand human motivation.
Okay, but hang on. If it's that simple, why do we get stuck in habits we know are bad for us? We know eating junk food leads to feeling bad later, right? Pain. So why do we still do it? Shouldn't we naturally just avoid it if we're wired to avoid pain?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it highlights the subtlety here. See, change often fails because we associate more immediate pain with the solution than with the problem. Think about dieting. The solution, the diet itself, often feels like pain restriction, hunger, deprivation, while the problem, maybe eating the cake, offers immediate short-term pleasure. The brain goes for the immediate hit. So for change to actually stick, you have to create this powerful neuroassociation. It's got to be visceral, linking massive, undeniable pain to the old behavior and incredible pleasure to the new one. It can't just be an intellectual thing like, oh, I should do this. It needs to be a gut-level command.
That reminds me of that pretty extreme example in the sources for creating those gut-level associations about the mother trying to stop her son's drinking problem. Lectures, logic, none of it worked. So she actually made him drink beer, like a lot of it, until he got incredibly sick and, well, vomited right there at the table. The immediate effect was his brain forged this instant, super strong link. Beer equals feeling horribly ill. The smell, the taste, all linked to intense physical pain.
Exactly. That intense, immediate negative feedback created a neuroassociation that powerfully guided his choices afterward. His brain basically said, never again. It found a unique, consistent, intense cause for that awful feeling. But that mechanism, while effective, also shows the danger, neurologically speaking. The brain looks for uniqueness, consistency, intensity, but it's not perfectly precise. This means we can easily form false neuroassociations. Say you pour everything into a really passionate business venture, it fails spectacularly, causes immense financial and emotional pain. Your brain might mistakenly link passion itself to pain. And that false link, that internal rule, can then hold you back for years without you even realizing why you're avoiding passionate projects.
Okay, so pain and pleasure are the engine. But we need to talk about the system that decides what triggers pain or pleasure for us. The sources call it the master system. It's like this internal filter, right? Made up of things like questions, values, beliefs, rules, references, and our emotional state at any given moment.
Yeah, 6 key elements. We probably can't dive super deep into all 6 right now, but let's look closely at values, beliefs, and especially rules, because they really shape our internal world. Your values are the big things, what you hold is most important, maybe contribution, success, love, freedom, whatever. Your beliefs are the sort of general assumptions you have about how the world works, how you can achieve those values, like hard work leads to success, or maybe people will always let you down.
And the rules then come directly from those beliefs. How do they actually play out day to day?
Rules are the specific, often unconscious criteria we have. They dictate what must happen for us to feel like we've met one of our values. So if your value of success, your rule might be, I must make over $100,000 a year to feel successful. If that rule is super rigid or maybe unrealistic right now, you're basically setting yourself up for feeling like a failure internally, even if you're achieving other things.
That connects to that brilliant example from the sources, the solar eclipse trip in Hawaii. It illustrates this perfectly. Thousands of people flew in, right? All sharing a value for, say, adventure or experiencing something unique. But then clouds roll in, completely blocking the main event, the totality. Same external situation, totally different internal reactions. You had one guy just exploding in anger, shouting, I spent $4,000 to watch this on TV. His rule for satisfaction was clearly very specific and rigid. I must see the eclipse perfectly, live, to feel satisfied. Failure was guaranteed when the clouds came.
Exactly. But then nearby, there's this couple just having a great time, laughing, taking pictures of the clouds, enjoying the moment together. Their rule was totally different. Something like, we're going to enjoy this experience in our time together no matter what. Their enjoyment wasn't dependent on the external event going perfectly. It was generated by their internal rule system. It was flexible, empowering. And that's the key takeaway for you listening. If your rule for happiness is something like, everything has to go exactly according to my plan or I can never mess up, well, you're pretty much guaranteeing unhappiness because life just isn't like that. It's messy, unpredictable. We need rules that empower us, that are flexible. Like that CEO example asked what made him feel successful. He said something like, all I have to do is get up, look down, and see I'm above ground. That's a rule that fuels drive without crippling anxiety.
That flows nicely into the tools we can use right now to change our state. You mentioned questions and vocabulary as part of that master system.
Absolutely. Your brain is like this incredible search engine. Ask it a question and it will find an answer. The issue is we often unconsciously ask really unhelpful questions like, why does this always happen to me? Or what's wrong with me? Your brain will dutifully find answers that just reinforce feeling bad.
Whereas asking a better question instantly shifts your focus, right? It accesses different resources.
Yeah.
There's that story about the author's company facing, what was it? A massive debt. Yeah, like $758,000 in the red because an associate messed up. Everyone was telling him, declare bankruptcy, it's over. But the crucial thing was he refused to accept that framing. Instead of asking, why me? He asked, okay, how can I turn this around? What can I do? That question shifted everything, focus, resources, energy, and within a year, they'd paid it off.
That focus shift is critical. Think about the Bo Jackson story, too. It's intense, but really illustrates this. He was young, furious at a bully, had a gun, was literally moments away from killing him. But in that critical instant, some part of his brain asked a powerful, albeit unconscious question, what will prison cost me? The anticipated pain of prison, that long-term consequence, suddenly became much bigger than the immediate short-term pleasure or satisfaction of revenge. So he lowered the gun, shot a tree instead. That question saved his life, potentially.
So questions direct our focus. And the second tool, vocabulary, specifically transformational vocabulary, that controls the intensity of the feelings we focus on. This seems really subtle but powerful. The idea that the words we use to label our emotions literally become our emotional experience.
It's incredibly powerful. It's like having a dimmer switch for your emotions. If you're feeling absolutely enraged, but you consciously choose to label that feeling as a bit peeved or slightly annoyed, the actual intensity of the physiological feeling starts to decrease. You're using language to downshift the emotion just by picking a less intense word.
Which leads to that fascinating point about people with an impoverished vocabulary potentially living an impoverished emotional life. If your only words for negative feelings are stressed or angry, you don't have the tools to really understand the nuances of what you're feeling, let alone manage it effectively.
Exactly. You lack the precision. But if you can expand your emotional vocabulary, you can describe things more accurately. Maybe instead of stressed, you can say, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed or I'm feeling impatient. That gives you more clarity. And if you can shift from saying, I'm devastated to, okay, I'm facing a challenge right now, you've immediately changed your capacity to act.
Okay, so we have pain, pleasure, focus through questions, intensity through vocabulary. How do we make these changes last? This brings us to the blueprint, right? Neuroassociative conditioning, or NAC, steps.
Yes, the 6 steps for creating permanent change. We've already touched on the first 2, really. Step 1, clearly define what you want. And step 2, get leverage that's linking massive pain to not changing the old pattern and massive pleasure to changing the new pattern. But once you have that leverage, that motivation, you need step 3, Interrupt the limiting pattern. Negative patterns, procrastination, smoking, negative self-talk, they run on autopilot along specific neural pathways. To break that loop, you need an interruption. And it has to be surprising, unexpected, even kind of outrageous sometimes. Something that completely scrambles the old signal, makes the brain go, whoa, what was that?
Right, this is where some of those maybe stranger-sounding techniques come in, like the one mentioned for breaking an overeating pattern. Go into a busy restaurant, point at an empty chair, and just yell, "Pig!" at the top of your lungs. The idea being that the sheer shock, embarrassment, the pain of doing something so socially unacceptable is so intense, it just shatters the automatic comfort-seeking pattern associated with overeating. It breaks the trance.
It creates a powerful disruption. And then the next steps lock in the change. Step 4 is create a new, empowering alternative. You can't just eliminate a behavior, you need to replace it with something better that meets the same underlying need. Step 5 is condition the new pattern until it's consistent. This involves repetition, reinforcement, making the new pathway stronger than the old one, like building a muscle. And step 6 is test it. Ensure the new pattern holds up under pressure, that it's not just a fair weather change. Make it robust. But if you're looking for the ultimate lever, the thing that really makes change stick long-term across all situations, it boils down to identity.
Changing who you believe you are. Not just changing a habit, but changing the label you wear inside.
Precisely. It's the difference between saying, I'm trying to quit smoking and knowing I am a non-smoker, or shifting from I'm a person with a drug problem to embodying the identity of I am a healthy person, or I'm committed to contribution. That new identity creates a standard. The old behavior becomes inconsistent with who you now believe yourself to be. Maintaining the integrity of that new identity becomes the driving force.
And that identity needs constant reinforcement, which brings us to CNI. Constant and never-ending improvement. It's not about achieving perfection overnight. It's about that relentless, small, daily progress. Like the Ford example, shifting their entire focus from just cutting costs, which is inherently limiting and often painful, to a commitment to constantly increasing quality. Based on the empowering belief that quality always costs less in the long run. That constant focus on improvement changed everything for them.
So when we pull it all together from these sources, the core message is really clear. Your destiny isn't predetermined by your circumstances or conditions. It's shaped by your consistent conscious decisions about where you focus your attention, what things mean to you, your rules and beliefs, and crucially, what actions you consistently take to live in alignment with who you've decided to be.
And maybe the deepest insight, the one that ties it all together, is about the purpose of goals. The sources suggest goals aren't really the end game. We chase them not just for the achievement itself, the money, the status, whatever, but because the process of chasing them forces us to grow, to expand, to become more.
Exactly. Reaching the goal might feel good for a moment, but lasting fulfillment doesn't come from just ticking a box. It comes from who you become along the way. The resilience you build, the character you forge, the empowering beliefs you adopt while overcoming the obstacles, that's the real prize. That journey of growth, that's what truly nourishes us. Which leaves us with a final thought for you to really chew on this week. Think about the long-term price of short-term comfort or avoidance. Are the decisions you're making today, maybe choosing fleeting pleasure or dodging temporary discomfort, actually setting up significant pain for the future version of yourself? And how can you, starting right now, consciously adjust your focus, your language, maybe even begin to shift your core identity to ensure that the person you truly aspire to become is already showing up in your choices today?